We Belong to Each Other is a collaboration with Engineering Ministries International for this year's Seattle Design Festival. For our fifth session of this series, we are exploring the topics community and disparity. The ideas and stories presented in this program emerged from conversations with designers in EMI's South Africa and MENA locations. We hope you enjoy it.
Picture yourself in Tahrir Square, Cairo, Egypt. This is the symbolic heart of Cairo, the location of the Egyptian Revolution of 2011, a place of untold horror, injustice and death, but also unity, change and hope. You're in a church service. Over 2,000 people are gathered together. They're old and young, rich and poor, African, Asian and European. Though it is an incredibly diverse group, there is a sense of overall unity in worship. When you're here, what do you see? Do you see division? Or do you see people with different backgrounds uniting together for one cause, for Christ? When you encounter someone who is different than you, what is your instinctive response? What does your heart produce? What does your mind think? Do you see beauty in the contrast of their life from your own? Or do you wonder why they don't do things the way you do? Do you look down on them because their clothes look different from yours? Because the place they call home? Do you think their circumstances are something they should just work harder to get themselves out of? Often we celebrate and speak only of the wonders of space, how it defines and magnifies a sense of place. It is not as often that we talk about the darker side of space, the power it has to divide and segregate its users, its ability to create places of extreme prosperity and extreme poverty. This is seen most starkly in cities. Cairo is a city that writes a story through its neighborhoods. There are many slums in the city. People who call these places homes are looked down upon simply because of the location they live. These locations are perceived as less desirable, less safe, and less overall in the eyes of the city. An increasing number of gated communities in the city highlights the growth and siloing of the city's wealth. Living in a villa within a compound provides security and an elevated status of the home and space. It gives an unspoken message. Should safety be a privilege or a luxury? Is it not a basic human right? How can design provide ways to equal the playing field of access to safety and perceived luxury? How can we ensure we're not creating unspoken hierarchical message in the walls in our design? Hassan Fathi is an Egyptian architect who challenged this divide. Fathi is often referred to as the architect of poor. In his time, he revived and brought out the beauty of the vernacular architecture of Egypt, implementing regional building materials and techniques. Hassan taught his local people the ancient construction techniques of their ancestors. These techniques had been lost, replaced by cheap imitations of the architecture of the upper classes. Fathi's designs were not only economically feasible, but they also honored the history, lifestyle, and geography of a socioeconomic class that had rarely been catered to with such integrity. The style used natural and locally sourced materials that made it clear their homes and the people in them belong there. But not all glass walls are as literal as the ones that Hassan Fathi tried to tear down. We try to separate ourselves through other examples of status too. Do you have a professional degree? Do you derive value from the level of education you have? Outside of the access it provides to more luxurious jobs, how does it affect your cultural identity or your view of the cultural identity of those who didn't go to college? South of Egypt, in the country of Ethiopia, farming has long been an essential profession. Families across the country found economic stability and a steadfast peace in the seasonal harvests from the fields around their homes. But as the world developed around them, and the value of education has moved beyond the gates of the cosmopolitan cities. It has inspired the young generations to pursue higher education, to attain advanced degrees, and to go on to innovate and contribute to the progress of their specialty fields. All good things, no doubt. But if that is the direction of progress and the definition of success, then where does that leave the brother still at home, who spends his day working on the land? Or the sister still in secondary school whose daily commitments to her family means she doesn't have the time to raise her grades to university standards? If society's view of success is narrowed to the participants of the system that does not have the capacity to admit it all, then how should we view the outsiders? And more importantly, how should they view themselves? Last year, I worked with a team of architects to master plan a campus of an agricultural university southwest of Addis Ababa, whose mission is to revive and celebrate the practice and culture of farming. With a unified spirit, they take new agricultural practices in part developed at universities. But like the architect Hassan Fathi, they also seek to help the country's young people to find value in the tradition of their parents' and grandparents' generations, and that celebrates the contributions of every class. Home, livelihood, where we spend our nights and where we spend our days. But who do we spend that time with, and who do we not spend that time with? Separated by another dimension of class segregation? Is there a people group who you used to view with some level of disdain, or with some degree of contempt? Where did you learn to have those feelings? How did you overcome them and move towards reconciliation? For me, I grew up in a part of Cairo that straddled a poor neighborhood and a wealthy one. Unlike most children, I came to know the neighbors on either side of me. It was through those relationships as a kid, before I was told any better, that I learned the value of a person is best determined with what's in their heart, not who society says they are. There's a saying that some people can be considered mistaken if they cannot see the forest through the trees. But I don't think you can truly understand the forest until you come to know some of the individual trees. Are there forests that you have judged from afar? I think the first step towards reconciliation is understanding that we are different. I think that deep inside, people refuse to acknowledge their differences, and they expect other people to act as they act or think as they think. But we are different. We're not going to be like each other. But we are one. We're all branches of the same tree. Think about the things that make you different. Things like your personality, your set of hobbies, your profession or your status, your faults, your brokenness. Now imagine what the world would look like if everyone was the same as you. It is true that there are real consequences and real suffering that results from economic disadvantage. But there is also pain that comes from a poverty of the soul and a feeling that you cannot be happy or accepted in the life that you have. That because you live in a slum, you can't have a home that you're proud of. That because you're a farmer, you're not a part of the future. Is it possible to unite under a common cause, despite our differences? Can we see our differences as a force of collaboration instead of a point of division? Even if the past, our own past, and the past of our country, is overgrown with the thorns of mistakes, judgment, and bias? Artist Fernando Botera uses design to provide hope for his own country, following a period of drug-related killings and bombings that left the nation torn and scared. At that time, during a festival in Medellin, one of Botera's sculptures was loaded with a bomb and exploded. People were killed and injured. When the sculpture, A bronze bird was going to be removed to clean up the area. Butera put his foot down. He said that it should not be removed because no matter how ugly and devastating it was, the melted and broken sculpture was part of Medellin's history. He recreated the original sculpture and placed it next to the old one as a sign of building a better future upon the broken past. Instead of erasing the past, he saw that we must feel the pain of it and build forward from it. This is one way to bring about true healing. How have you reconciled failures of the past with the hope of a better tomorrow? It might be different for all of us. Only a few years after the violent revolution in Cairo, I look at soccer games in our city and see people of all backgrounds unite together to cheer on their national team. The church in Tahrir Square, the same square that was the centerpiece of the revolution, is now filled with people of all ages, backgrounds, ethnicities, and economic statuses. They put aside their differences to worship God together. What do you believe is worth uniting for?
Thank you for joining us for the 5th session of this series. All of the programs from this past week are available on Spotify and YouTube. We'd love to hear your thoughts, ideas, and feelings about your experience. Be sure to check out the survey on EMI's festival webpage to continue the conversation. To learn more about this year's Seattle Design Festival, go to designinpublic.org and check out the full lineup of events happening August 15 through 23rd, all exploring the theme About Time. EMI is a nonprofit Christian development organization that brings together teams of volunteer architects, engineers, surveyors, and construction managers. We use our skills to serve people worldwide through the design of hospitals, schools, water systems, and many other facilities. Check out the opportunities and adventures listed on our website and reach out to us today. Together, we are designing a world of hope.